questions about the relationship between cities and finance. First question is that nowadays, as we all know, that finance is important for the cities. But I want to know whether the financial system works to enhance the urban development, or do you think that does it have some risks for the cities? Just as we all know that after the financial storm crisis, many people, many citizens lost their job. Is it normal? How can I prevent from this phenomenon?
Mm-hmm. And did you say you had a second question?
The second question is that nowadays many financial corporations are located in the greater cities in China, as Beijing and Shanghai and Hong Kong. Do you think is it a normal phenomenon, or do you think that the financial corporations should be settled in more cities, just like middle cities or small cities? So the question is that the centralization of the financial corporations is better, or the disperse of the financial corporations is better for the cities, because China has many cities, like great cities, middle cities, and many small cities. Those are my two questions.
Yes.
Thank you.
So the finance of urban development, the challenge in any kind of development, real estate development, is that you're creating very long-lived assets, and the proper way to finance that is with long-lived equity or long-lived debt or something like this. And to match the term of the financing to the term of the asset that you're producing. But typically construction loans are very short term, because the way it's typically arranged, it's Ponzi finance, okay? In the sense that you're building something that costs $1 million, you have a $1 million loan, and hopefully when it's done, then you will issue bonds or you'll sell the apartments or something like that. But it's a 2-year construction loan or a 3-year construction loan. So it is very fragile finance, okay? And when the banks run into trouble and they don't renew their loans, or the construction stops, and suddenly there can be a big crisis. It's inherently fragile finance, that kind of thing. So we need to keep a watch on it and not do too much of it, or you can get into trouble. I don't know. I know that there's enormous real estate construction in China, but I'm not an expert in this. It does seem that there's been overbuilding and overlending, but what do I know? I just read the newspaper, so I have no privileged information on that point. The second point is very interesting to me, because again, from American history, because this debate, I live in Manhattan, okay, in New York, and the rest of America thinks of this Manhattan as another world. It's centralized, it's big buildings, and it's where all Goldman Sachs and everything is there, and they're afraid of it. What's happening? Did I do it? Something. Is this working now? Okay. When the Federal Reserve System was created in 1913, they confronted this question, and they said, well, we're going to have a decentralized central bank. and we're going to have 12 of them, and they're going to be one in Boston, and one in San Francisco, and one in Chicago, and Cleveland, and so they distribute it around the country to avoid centralization, because they were afraid that with centralization came power. Okay, and they thought Wall Street already had enough power. We didn't need more power. Well, New York Fed is the most important of these regional feds, obviously. It's also was, even at the beginning, it's the one where all the foreign exchange, where the Federal Reserve System sort of connects to the rest of the world. It all happened through New York. And why? That's because that's where the financial markets are. So it's inherently so. There's a natural, this hierarchy of money idea that you know from the course means that there's a natural kind of tendency to centralization and to hierarchy in the system, but it doesn't have to all be locational. Okay, that hierarchy is a sort of conceptual hierarchy and balance sheet hierarchy. But in terms of its location on the ground, I think you have some more flexibility, particularly with modern technology, communications technology, where things physically are located. So I notice, for example, in New York, many of the big banks say, like Goldman Sachs, they've said, Manhattan is too expensive. We don't want to have our offices here. We're going to move just across the river to New Jersey, or we're going to have a whole processing area in Dallas or in New Hampshire. Fidelity has all of it. So they do different functions of the firm can be in various locations, and I think that would be very much appropriate for your urban planning idea, that there's a lot of back office kinds of operations in the financial sector. It doesn't all have to be in expensive central urban areas, and you know that our firms, profit-making firms, make these decisions themselves. But urban planners can help to organize that and move it around. So I think it's not going to be centralized geographically necessarily. There are a couple of reasons to think so.